Jesus, friend of a wounded heart. Good evening, everyone. It's that time again, 9 p.m. on a Wednesday, when we meet to talk about the wounded hearts, to talk about our hurts, and to introduce Jesus as the friend of a wounded heart. It's such a pleasure to be here once again. Let's say a word of prayer before we begin. Heavenly Father, we thank you for making this evening possible. We thank you for all those who have logged on and those who will log on. And we ask, oh Father, that you would take charge of the proceedings. Guide the discussions, dear Father, and may someone find you, find Jesus, the friend of a wounded heart, and the person who can heal all their wounds. We thank you and we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Akisha, it's the 10th session. Akisha, what's happening? Just a short while ago, it was our first session.
Exactly. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining with us this evening. Yes, and I am so happy that it isn't something that we just started and fall off the wayside with. It is such I think it's such a great experience to be a part of this, to see persons overcome, especially hurting situations by the grace of God, is an amazing experience. So as we go into today's topic and today's proceeding, I pray that, and I hope that whatever story we are told today have a ending that, I guess it's as bright as what we would have seen in some of the other contributions we would have had so far for this Hope and Action series.
Akisha, I had to laugh at about 3 persons today. Persons are logging on a Tuesday night. They love the program so much that they cannot wait till Wednesday night. So they're logging on. So 2 persons messaged last night asking, what happened? What happened to the program? What happened to the link? And I said, it's Tuesday. And then one person told me this morning that she missed the program last night. I said, the program is tonight. So persons are
so we know that
on.
we are making an impact. Yes.
We are making an impact. We are reaching
It's not all in vain.
Yes.
And that's why we need to really thank everybody that contribute to the program as well. Because your story, whatever happened to you, whatever hurt, or whatever pain that you went through, to be able to come here and share it is really reaching somebody, and it can really have an impactful and outcome for another person who may be going through something that's very similar to what you're going through. So is not all in vain.
That's right. And I want to add my bit of welcome to everyone. There are persons who have been following us from session 1. And I know we have new persons this evening. I see Major Myrna Riley from Jamaica. Welcome, welcome. It's just past 8 o'clock there. But we know you're busy. It's good to have you. To any other person who is visiting for the first time, dropping in for the first time, welcome. And I hope that you will continue to join our sessions. Feel free to share the invitation when we send it out. Feel free to unmute your mic and make contributions when we answer it. Akisha, I want to thank you for being such a wonderful co-host. Akisha is the Secretary of Hope and Action Network. She's responsible for the flyers, and we really have a good, smooth communication going between us. Thank you so much, Akisha, for being
You're
so
most welcome.
supportive. When we look back, Akisha, what do you think? How are we heading in terms of our vision? And of course, I'd like you to share the vision with those attending.
Sure. Hope and Action, when we established, we came up with this vision, and I think so far, well, let me read it for you first, and you be the judge. A better society built on a strong foundation through the empowerment of everyone. So that's our vision. That is where we see ourselves heading into the future. And I think so far with this series and other things that we would have done, we are actually getting a good start at our vision.
In terms of the previous sessions, we started off with an introductory session.
Yes.
Talking about hurts, talking about wounds, talking about Jesus. And then we had some stories from some of our ladies. I remember those first 2 nights and the sharing and the talks of forgiveness, dealing with difficult situations, dealing with hurts. But of course, before those 2 ladies were able to deal with their hurts, they had some very terrible thoughts, and they told us about them. And what I admire is the freedom with which persons are sharing. And those sharing, I think, is really coming from a place of healing, where people are feeling better about their situations, so they feel free to talk. And then we went to the men, and we were asking for 2 nights, do men hurt? For 2 sessions. And for the men, I think we've had our longest sessions because the men were just talking, sharing, telling us what hurt. And then we responded following a subsequent session, and we said, men, we heard you. Men, we heard you. And we had one sister saying, I really want to do better because I give my husband a hard time. And that sister was very free and open, and she really shared with us, and she found the sessions to be very helpful. We also dealt with the me inside of me, and we dealt with that for 2 sessions where we talked about how people make us feel. The concepts, the self-image, the self-concept, the self-esteem, and how persons can really, really destroy the way we feel about ourselves. Then we moved on to workplace hurts. And did we have some stories last week? Yes, we did.
Yes, we did. Yes.
Today, we have a gentleman sharing with us. Sharing. And today's session is titled, Things That Hurts Drive You Too, or the things that hurt can drive you too. And we will continue along this line for a few sessions. Today, Eustace, who has been with us, Eustace is one of our faithfuls. Eustace is going to share with us a story, a true story about how people could be driven to a place very unpleasant place because of hurt. Eustace, it's all over to you. Thank you for agreeing to share with us this evening.
Good night, everyone. First off, I wanted to give two sides, well, two stories. One would be subjective and one would be objective. I will start with the objective viewpoint of it first. Right? So now in my profession, right, you come across a lot of people and a myriad of scenarios, right? So there was this one scenario that we came across some years ago, back in about 2010, where we got a call about a domestic dispute, right? So we responded. Having responded now, yeah, there was this common law husband and wife, and they were having this argument about one of the partners bringing home a disease, right, into the marital home. And when you got into the story, the wife indicated that, you know, the husband was out there, he was real doing it, he was running all kinds of life, right? And when he decided he was going to cool down now, right? And she now decided, here now I have to get him back. And the first time she decided to get him back, she brought home HIV, right? So the first story points to how destructive wanting to be vengeful could be, or rather the consequences of trauma when you don't take that time out to really do the necessary introspection and ensure that you don't lose yourself. That is one of the first things you could really pick up from that story. In fact, when you see the couple now, they are like empty shells of themselves. They don't know if to go, if to come, you know, and like they're just there, you know. And the other one now is a personal experience of mine, and same kind of scenario. And my reaction, my personal reaction to that was to do for do, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, right? But I will tell you this, it is one of the most unfulfilling things that you could do to try to feel better about yourself, having experienced such trauma. In fact, you'll feel much more dumb than you did before. So at the end of the day, if I had known what I know now about that kind of situation, I know that is something that you have to give it time really before you really deal with it, and you cannot afford to really give in to your emotions. I took the liberty to look at several biblical verses that really postures, it really encapsulates how one should react, right? So I took this from Matthew chapter 5, reading from verse 38 to 39. You have heard that it was said, eye for an eye and tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn them the other cheek also. Now, this verse, in my respectful view, is not really telling you for you to be stupid, you know. It's what it's really trying to tell you is to not lose yourself in the cycle of vengeance. Yeah? Which you, as the two stories point out, there are consequences when you choose to pick up that sword of vengeance, right? So if someone traumatizes you, the best thing to do is try to be at peace and leave it to God. All right, so that's my contribution.
Thank you, Eustace.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify something from the first story.
Yes.
Is it that you're saying the husband was unfaithful and he brought
Yes.
home a sexually
No.
transmitted? Oh,
No, he
did
was
not.
unfaithful.
Yes.
He was unfaithful, and when he reached a certain stage in his life, he cooled down. But the wife had it in her head going around. She wasn't quite over it as yet, and she went and tried to make herself feel better by being unfaithful. It didn't work out as she thought it would have. As a matter of fact, it actually turned out quite worse. Yeah, it's a really tragic story.
The things that hurt can drive you too.
Yeah.
I like how, yes, I like how you ended by saying that we should not get lost in this cycle of revenge.
Yes.
But that we should really, there's someone we should reach out to. That's what I hear you saying. Yeah. Akisha, what did you gather from what? Did you want to add
well,
something?
Actually, the first story, I mean, I don't have all the details, but so far, I mean, we can see when you go through a situation and you're not over it. I don't know if she probably thought at some point, because the couple would have remained together. That's what you said, right? And to remain together.
Yes. Remain together,
right?
yeah.
So I'm assuming that at some point she probably felt that, you know, she was over it or good enough to move past that phase. But clearly, that trauma or that experience that she would have been through really had a lasting effect. And so much so that, you know, it caused her to go out and do something that possibly in a normal circumstance she would not have done. But it's something that you said, and something that I believe as well, is that, you know, when we try to seek revenge for whatever reason, when we try to seek revenge and we try to work out situations, especially stuff like that, on our own strength, the consequences that comes along with it sometimes are so lasting, and we have to deal with those consequences. So, I mean, sometimes we make decisions off of, you know, rash decisions, not thinking through the process 100%. But look at the consequence in these. You said that they are shells of themselves. You know, look at the consequences that they now have to face because of, you know, something that one person or both parties couldn't move past. So I think it's important that, you know, life is going to come and life is going to throw at us all sorts of situations that we possibly never even signed up for. But it is important that we, you know, deal with these situations as they come, as opposed to leave it to pent up. And, you know, you believe that, you know, sometimes when it's not fully in front of your face, you think you're okay, but when the reality of the situation comes, you realize you're not okay. So I think it's important that we deal with our situations so that we can avoid some of these consequences, because, you know, even when we make errors, God will forgive us, but the consequences for our errors still remain. So I think that's something that really really hit me when you were sharing that first story, and even so the second one to some extent as well.
Well, I will again, I want to say this, that even when you look at it both from a subjective standpoint and an objective standpoint, you realize while my situation, my personal situation was not as dire, but I could tell you it did not bring any fulfillment at all. Yeah. So as you rightly said, trying to deal with those situations by yourself is not a good idea. Yeah. So, anyone have any questions? Anybody would like to make any contribution?
Well, while we wait until persons gather their thoughts, I was something again you said do not give in to something along the lines, do not give in to your emotions. And I think that was some advice. You know, we go through situations, and if you're not really grounded in what you believe sometimes, and even when you are, our emotions sometimes guide our decisions. And we make some really off decisions by just focusing on, you know, letting your emotions lead. So I think that was sound advice, especially when you're in situations as such.
Correct.
You know, I keep thinking about her and the fact that she wanted to get back at him. When we seek to get back at persons because they've done us some wrong, we're not coming from a good place. We're coming from a place of deep hurt. And when we get back at the person, the hurt is not gone. The hurt remains. And in this situation, she caused further pain on herself and her partner because she's now living with a lifelong disease.
That's right. Yeah.
You know.
Even in my situation, as you pointed out, it doesn't fix anything.
No.
Because you're seeking vengeance in one breath, but you're seeking self-validation in another breath.
Right.
So it really doesn't help. The only thing really to fix that is time. Is time. Time has to fix that. And leaning on the right support systems. You know, if you are around people who are religiously inclined, knowing the scriptures, some of the scriptures are very, very helpful. Very, very incredibly helpful. Yeah.
You know, I'm looking back, I'm also thinking about the stories that we heard from our sister from St. Vincent and our sister from St. Lucia. Both of them shared on the same evening. And while they had thoughts of murder and you know, all kinds of bitter kinds of responses, they shared some powerful points. They eventually dealt with the situation by praying, by reading, by leaning on persons who could help them, by using songs that could help them. So, you know, they turned from the negative thoughts to a more positive kind of response. And so they were able to deal with their situations and move to a better place. Revenge hurts the person who is seeking to exact the revenge. It will hurt the other person. It can hurt the other person. But deep down inside, when we're trying to do something to get back at that person, we are hurting ourselves. We are making ourselves sick. We are using some very negative types of emotions, and those things are not good for us. Pain is painful. Pain is painful. However, we have someone we can lean on, the friend of a wounded heart. Sometimes when we try to talk to him, the words don't come out right because we are hurting so much. But we can give our hurts over to him and he will help us. The floor is open for anyone who wishes to make a contribution. We usually invite persons to respond. Major Myrna?
Yes, I want to further add, right, that two great responses to trauma is the response by David when his child Bathsheba died. When his servants came to him and they asked him, well, you know, why you was just crying and carrying on a little while ago and you hear the child dead and you just get up and you're going, and he was like, you know, I can't go and meet him. I'll meet him someday. Life goes on. That was basically his response. Life goes on. I gonna eat. What are you doing? Come on, join me. Let's eat. That was his response. And Job said it most succinctly. He said, the Lord give it, the Lord take it. And he continued to rejoice. So therein lies the best responses to hurt, to trauma, to pain. And I mean, the Bible is replete with examples of it and how to deal with trauma, whether inadvertent or deliberately inflicted upon its victim.
Yes, it is. And we must also be very careful. As you mentioned, Job. I want to say we should be very careful about who we listen to, you know. Job's wife gave him some advice. Curse God and die. But he did not do that. He did not do that. His faith in God was strong. And so he gave it up to him. He gave it all to him. He rested on him. And of course, we know in the end, it all worked out for his good. He was better than he was before. The floor is open for anyone wishing to share.
Okay, Sister Joan, one of the things I often say to persons is that we will never be able to control what life throws at us or the things that people do to us. But one of the things we do have control over is how we respond to that. And earlier on, someone shared about persons oftentimes acting on emotions. So persons tend to be reactive to things. And one of the things I tend to encourage persons to do is to take the time to think about when the emotions rise and you feel like this is how I want to respond, this is the revenge I want to take. You ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen if I really take this action? And then take some time to process it. Because invariably, when you try to get revenge on others, you're actually hurting yourself more than you are hurting the others. And while forgiveness may not be an easy thing to do, no one is saying it is easy, because sometimes people do things and it really gets to the core of you and you want to get back, but then you have to think about other things and the implications of that. And I tell people that we have to lean on the promises of God. There's a promise in Isaiah 41:10 that I really do like, because at times when you feel stressed and upset, and it says, "Fear thou not, for I am with thee, be not dismayed. For I am thy God, I will strengthen thee, I will help thee, and I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness." And so in moments when you feel like everything is falling down around you, like you can't cope with this anymore, there's that powerful reminder that God has promised that he will be there to help you and to keep you through. And I know that there are a lot of persons that are hurting, a lot of persons that are struggling with pain, and every time they sometimes look at the people around them, there's this reminder. But when you can start, if you keep that inside, it also generates these negative chemicals within your body that actually affect you as well. And you can develop physical symptoms just from all of these stresses and everything that's taking place. So if we ask God to give us that power, that strength to be able to forgive, and if we ask him to give us that spirit of discernment that will help us to make the right choices. And it's also good to have a support system because sometimes you don't necessarily need the persons to give you an advice. But if you have someone that you can basically just unload, you can just talk about. And then I say to persons, if you really can't find anybody to talk about the hurts and the issues that you're having, try journaling. Or you can just write it. Write it out. Sometimes you write it, you get it out of your system. It's like talking to someone. And then when you're finished with that, you can tear it up, you can burn it, you can do whatever. But at least it's a release and it helps to get through. But we need to keep in mind that as we face whatever challenges there are, we have a God who has promised that he will never leave us. He will never forsake us, because he's always touched by our infirmities. And, he has promised that before we call, he will answer. And while we are yet speaking, he will hear. And so we have to trust that he is sufficient to help us to move through our challenges. But faith without works is death. So we can't just sit down and say, I'm going to just pray about it and God will help me with it. Prayer is important. It is essential that we connect with God, but he has put people around to assist us, and we need to make sure that we use the resources that are available to us as well. So that's my bit of contribution for now.
Thank you, Major. You touched on some very important points there. It's not always easy to forgive. It's not always easy to forgive. Well, I mean, as I said before, pain is painful. Pain is painful. And there are times when we need to sit and process what has happened and so on, but we really have to move on. Otherwise, we could become sick. As Major said, we can become ill. All those kinds of negative hormones that we wake up when we seek to have revenge, they're not good for us. We are hurting ourselves when we seek to hurt other persons. I want to come back, the persons who came in late. We're talking about, or Eustace shared an experience with us. He was called to a home. They had to solve a domestic dispute. He spoke about a husband who was unfaithful. And his wife decided that she was going to get back at him. So she went out and was unfaithful as well. But it did not end well for her and her partner, because she brought home HIV. She wanted revenge, but she's left with a lifelong illness as a result of that. How do you think this wife felt when she recognized what happened, when she saw the results of her actions? How do you think she felt? And anybody can answer.
Well, I can tell you from the starting point that with my subjective experience, that in itself has a level of guilt far less for the consequences that would have come along with her actions, meaning to say what disease that she brought upon herself and her partner. That would probably be devastating towards her. She would probably have years of guilt to carry around. Years, literally. She'll probably get up every day and praying for the ground to swallow her. It is what it is. But that would not be an easy burden to carry. Yeah?
Yes, it will be extremely painful. Akisha?
My first thought is, was it worth it? I think that's probably something that, immediately would have entered her mind. Was it really worth it? And yeah, I would go with that one, because I think, especially in this case where the consequences is so so severe for an action that she would have taken. So I would ask myself, if I put myself in her shoes, was this really worth it? Can I just, find another way, to express my grief or express my anger, or probably get over my anger, as opposed to going this route, So that that is difficult. But on that note, though, when a little earlier, I was thinking, sometimes the difficult thing is that sometimes when we're talking about trauma, sometimes the difficult thing is that we think that the person that hurt us is on the same page as we are currently. So you never really get over your hurt. And you believe that, that person is still at that space. But sometimes the place that the person is who would have caused you the hurt, they forget about that hurt, they move on. They probably didn't even think it affected you at such significant way as you're, feeling. And so that person move on. So you're really trying to find this vengeful spirit to hurt back this person. But the person not bothered because they don't even remember. They're not bothered by the fact that they hurt you. They don't understand the impact that the hurt would have caused you. So basically, you're just fighting against yourself when you're trying to be, revengeful and trying to get back at a person. So until we learn to forgive and move forward, we will continue to have that, that spirit that's kind of like pushing us to do what is wrong. So we cannot be happy and revengeful. We cannot be happy and sad at the same time. So we have to choose which one we want to focus on. Either we want to be happy and being happy in terms of not trying to make other people feel the way, because when you're trying to seek revenge, you're trying to make that person feel the way you felt. How much sense does that make? Because you understand the hurt that you would have been through, and then you want somebody else to feel that same level of hurt or worse. So it doesn't really, I guess it's easier for me to say than it is to do, because when you're in certain situations and you allow, again, going back to our story again, and we allow these emotions to take over. Revenge is something that feels good in our mind at the time, but it's really we can't be happy and choose that at the same time. So we have to choose, and to choose happiness, to choose joy, to choose positive things will overcome so much. And even if that person is at the same space as you, understanding and remembering the hurt they put you through, seeing how you would have responded, seeing how you would have taken that negative situation and turn it into something that's so much more positive, it can even have an impact on that person as well.
Yes, Akisha, thank you for your contribution. Very, very important. And while you were speaking, I kept reflecting on the strategies that Major gave us a while ago.
Yes.
And the references in the back from the Bible, from Eustace as well as from Major Myrna. I'm also thinking of the strategies that we shared before. Last week, we said we need, last week or the week before, we need to surround ourselves. We need to surround ourselves with persons who can support us.
Exactly.
Who will give us good advice, because sometimes we talk to the wrong persons. The persons who will say, girl, you need to go and do it back to him. Do him back the same thing he did you. Those are not the persons we should be listening to.
Exactly. And where are they when you are suffering with your consequences?
That's
they are nowhere to be found. They are no longer support to you.
That's
because
right.
you're fighting this by yourself now. So it's really wise counsel to make sure that the persons that you share, especially when you share certain stories with, be careful, who you share certain stories with or certain difficulties with, because you want to get responses, you want to get advice that will actually help and not further hurt you in your situation. So yeah.
Yes, I want to drop something in here now. We're speaking about a situation where a partner was unfaithful. We're not letting that partner off the hook just like that, eh? Even though we're saying the wife should not have acted in the way that she did. We are still saying here, that the partner should be faithful. Should have been faithful. But we know, you know, in this world, things happen. People do things that we do not expect. But when we share this recording, when we share the invitations, we are sharing in the hope that person's lives can be changed. So the partner who might be planning to be unfaithful or wants to be unfaithful, we're saying that that is wrong. We're saying it is wrong. To the person who, you know, felt hurt because the partner was unfaithful, we're saying it's wrong to hit back. It's wrong to try to get back at that person.
Sure.
Because you're really getting back at yourself and hurting yourself. Because you know, would be moving into this very sinful act, and you have to deal with it. You have to deal with it and yourself afterwards. That feeling of guilt, that pain, and everything else. The hurt doesn't go away when we seek revenge. But we have been talking for a while, and we heard from Major Myrna, but we haven't heard from any other person on this evening. And we're inviting you now to make your contribution. Tell us how you feel. Tell us how you felt this wife should have responded when she discovered that the partner was unfaithful. What are some other ways, some other strategies she should have tried to deal with this situation? I know we have persons here. We have some. Yes, go ahead, Katrina.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I understand clearly with everything, but one of the ways that I think she could have deal with it is probably pray and walk away, because I realize in forgiveness, we forgive people, but the presence sometimes of them being wrong, and it may not be the same problem that they come back with, but it have different things that they may do that carry back to, you know, certain experience you may have with them that causing you to sin in your mind too. So I think sometimes when we forgive people, sometimes we really need to cut them off for our own good until, you know, such of a time. Because I myself too went through some stuff as a child, and it took me a really long time for me to forgive the situation, to forgive the person, right? Because it caused me some tremendous hurt. But however, for me to come to the closing point with it when I started going to church, and it wasn't 7 days at the time, but you know, was now finding the Lord and, you know, learning how to pray and how, you know, how to go treat with certain situations. I tried to find closure by, you know, confronting part of the situation, right? By, you know, confronting part of the problem. And the response wasn't very positive. And there's where I realized that in forgiving, I had to let go and move away from the persons all entirely in order for me not to feel a particular way. Right? I mean, sometimes when you explain to people, you know, they will say probably you didn't forgive, but yes, you forgive, but in staying around them, sometimes it really causes you to think and feel a particular way. They continue on the same path, not with the same incident, but they continue with some negative things that could really cause a negative impact on your life. So sometimes you really have to cut them off after forgiving. Well, so I think, based on my experience.
I was speaking with someone recently, Katrina, and I thank you for your contribution. I was speaking with someone recently who felt that he was not forgiven because his partner did not return home. And I asked him, I said, but how do you know that you were not forgiven? Well, she's not here with, you know, she's not here with me. She didn't come back. And I said to that person, there are times when you forgive, but you need to get out of this situation. So you're not holding it against the person, but for your own good. Sometimes for your own safety, you have to get out of certain situations.
Yes,
If you
I
are in
fully
a,
will understand.
if you
Because
are in
I
an
realized in
abusive,
dealing with them,
go
I
ahead,
was
yes.
very toxic. Like when anytime I have to have a conversation and have to see them, I would get very, like once I have a conversation, conversations come up, you're feeling you're just not seeing they're not genuine with the conversation. So I realized I myself was becoming very toxic. So I really had to step away because I realized this is not good for me. I need to keep away. So we just really had to take that into consideration, and people really had to be taught like how to forgive and walk away.
Yes, thank you, Katrina. Is there anyone else who wishes to share?
Well, but in the meantime, I was thinking, I have a coworker who makes this statement in terms of how she probably could have coped. He would say that you can't hate, or you can't have hate for the person that you're praying for. So in other words, when somebody hurts you, when you're going through these difficult situations, having, all these thoughts about, the trauma that this person will allow you to, whatever, well, contributed towards, you pray for that person. And, I guess as a good Christian, you're not going to pray bad things. So you're going to pray to God to help you and to help that person. And if you're praying for that person, you really wouldn't be thinking revengeful things. You wouldn't be thinking things to hurt them back because you're praying for them. Yeah. So I thought that was that if we really adopt doing something like that, we would have less hurtful thoughts. Yeah. Because you're letting that situation to God one time, and two, as long as God is working on your life, you really wouldn't have those thoughts to hold on to. So I thought that was a good response as well.
There's a person who is very close and dear to me, who I know prayed and asked God to help them to forgive their partner. Lord, help me to forgive my partner. Because if we rely on our human nature, we can fail,
True.
Yes, because we are sinners. We are sinners. And the wise thing to do, the best thing to do is to go to God and to say, God, help me. I want to forgive my husband, my cousin, my co-worker, or whoever caused us pain. And God answers prayers. He will do it for us. He will do it for us. We, but sometimes we feel so, as though we are in control, we're powerful, we have to get back at the person. That person did something wrong and I must get back at them. When we're like that, it's all a selfish move. It's a selfish feeling. And remember, if we don't forgive, we cannot be forgiven. We cannot. There is Lord's Prayer that we've been learning since we were babies. Speaks of forgiveness and is asking God to forgive us as we forgive our debtors. Or forgive those who trespass against us, depending on the version that we're using. So forgiveness is key. So when God tells us to come daily to ask for forgiveness, we will not get it if we do not forgive those who do us wrong. Revenge isn't a good thing. Revenge is wrong. God says vengeance is his and he will repay. So we must not take it upon ourselves to try to execute revenge on anyone.
Good evening. Joan, I came in late, so I didn't get the genesis of all that happened. But I was wondering, I know whatever happened with the lady, she's suffering as a result. But I am also wondering whether vengeance was her only motive for what she did. Whatever she did, we realize it was wrong. But could it have been just her brokenness and seeking some sort of comfort that she wasn't getting? I'm not saying that what she did is right, but I'm just saying, was vengeance her only motive that had her in this position? We will all agree that perhaps there wasn't that support structure around her. She didn't have the right tools to deal with whatever she was coping with. But was it just pure vengeance, or could it be that she felt so broken, she was just looking for some sort of comfort and found herself in the position that she was in? I'm just throwing this out. I'm just wondering.
Eustace is here, Joy. That's a good question, eh? I like that question. Eustace is here, and he was the person who shared the story. So Eustace, did you hear what Joy was asking?
Yes. No, I will have to say that there would be that element as well, because they would be seeking a level of validation. And I could even talk about that from my personal experience as well. I was trying to make myself feel worthy, that, I want to feel wanted. So, yeah, it will have a mixture of emotions. So it might not just be vengeance alone. Vengeance might be, yes, it might be part of it. But the person wants to feel wanted as well.
Yeah.
Yes, I like the word you use, that validation, and again, it goes back to us needing that support system all around, and having those persons who are there to empathize with us, to give us that compassion that is so desperately needed. That compassion that Christ displayed when he walked the earth, that compassion that we see displayed in the scriptures, and that we are to pattern. So I just wanted to throw that into the whole mix, because when things like this happen, we forget that aspect of it, and we tend to come down sometimes, I find, really harshly on the person who is now suffering as a result of the hard choices that they made, the wrong choices, so we always have to bring that compassion and that empathy into the mix when we doing these discussions. Just thought I would bring this in.
Yes, thank you, Joy. Yeah, thank you. Eustace said previously, before he gave us his last response, when he spoke earlier, he said, when he looks back at it, it was not worth it. It was not worth it. Human beings tend to seek validation. So a mixture of validation, the desire for validation as well as revenge might have prompted her actions. But we have to remember that it is not worth it. And this is why we are having programs like these, so that we can share with persons, so that we can help persons to deal with situations that are unpleasant, situations that cause us pain. We are offering the friend of the wounded heart, that friend who we can talk to at any time, that friend who has promised us that he will ease our burdens, he will carry them for us. That friend who is always ready and willing. Sometimes when we call a friend, call them up, we don't get an answer on the other end. They're not there to answer that call or respond to that text, but he's always there, always willing, always ready to answer. So we encourage you. Joy, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that I think it was Major Myrna
Yes.
who mentioned writing. Well, I can say this is one of my personal strategies. And, she spoke about journaling or just writing out your pain, writing out your hurt, even though you don't want, you wouldn't want somebody else to see the rawness of your emotion that you write and you can tear it up. And even when you are talking about the friend of the wounded heart, you can write letters to God too, You can just write him and tell him how you're feeling, because sometimes in praying, we are not always able to find the right words or get it all out through the speech. But, just writing, that helps. So I'd really like to advocate the writing as a way of helping in situations like this. Thanks, Joan.
Yes, thanks, Joy. Thanks, Joy. Really getting some beautiful points here this evening, which we all need to take on board, because we all feel pain, eh? At some point in time, we feel pain. We are not immune. Things will happen. We will be hurt. And we thank you for the suggestions as to how we can deal with those hurts that we're feeling. I can take one more response, and then we can move on, Akisha.
All right, would you like to move on? Because
Yes, we have a quiet room.
yes.
I hope that they're still awake.
I'm listening,
Akisha.
yes. I guess everybody is just absorbing what's being shared. What's being shared and trying to apply it in their lives.
The story is a very tragic one, though, so people
Yes.
probably are struck as we speak.
Yes.
And probably even struggling to come to terms with something like that. So I guess the story probably properly resonating with the consciousness. That's why they're really not falling over themselves to respond at this point.
Yeah,
possibly. And I was also thinking, we spoke a lot about the wife, but the husband who not just started it, but who also suffered any consequences with her. I mean, that's like trauma going back and forth. That's like, so it really is a complex situation. Very sad and very complex, because it is not that it stopped with her. She went back home, and that was, so the both of them suffering the consequences of one bad action starting with him. So I can probably understand why persons trying to, wrap their minds around this situation. It's really a lot.
Yes, it is.
In relation to the husband now, he was like, what? All the time I play the fool, and I stop playing the fool, and this when I get catch. He was flummoxed. He was stuck.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
He was, I tell you that.
I hope they're receiving the support that is needed.
I believe so. I believe so.
Okay. Okay, great. Great. Friend of a Wounded Heart was conceptualized for the purpose of assisting all of us who experience hurts from time to time. We are happy that so many persons have caught on to the vision and are here with us every Wednesday evening. We are happy for those who share the invitations and for those who share the recordings, which we post on YouTube and on Facebook on Thursday mornings. It's on YouTube, on Hope and Action Network's page, as well as on my personal page, Joan Bobb-Ward. It's on my YouTube channel, Joan Bobb-Ward. And you're free to go in and to share and to like. We want other persons to hear. We are about empowering everyone so that they can deal with the situations that they encounter. Things could change. People could change, could be changed as a result of listening to what we have to offer. And what do we offer? We say we offer prayer. We ask people to listen to positive songs, to read the promises in the Bible. And I can offer no other book but the Bible because we are Christians. If you need counseling, remember God has given persons knowledge so that they can help you to deal with these situations if you need it. He has given people the knowledge. Scripture is full of promises that we can hold on to. And we also offer tools, and some of the tools were suggested by Major Myrna and others this evening. Hold on to people who can support you through your problems. You know, it's always important to reflect and not to act in haste. So you've been hurt. Take your time to breathe and to count to 20 and to sit back and think about what has happened. And before you make any decision, think about the consequences, weigh the consequences of your actions. And remember that vengeance is God's, and he said that he will repay. We are on every Wednesday from 9 p.m. It's a recurring meeting. It is this, you use the same login information, the same Zoom ID and password, or the same link. Every Wednesday, 9 p.m. It's not Tuesday, it's Wednesday at 9 p.m. I know you're anxious to get on and to hear what else is coming, but it's Wednesday. So please wait until Wednesday evening to log in to the program. For those who were waiting last night, I love you all. I love your energy, but it's Wednesday. And we're going to be here each Wednesday evening. I'm going to ask Lester Brown, who I see there, to say the closing prayer for us this evening. Lester?
A pleasant good night to you, Sister Ward, Joan.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. Good to see you on.
Good. I joined a little late, but I had a meeting right after the service tonight, and it went pretty long.
Okay.
And so I joined in a little late. So I got the tail end of the program, you know. So I heard you call my name, but I'm not sure what you was asking me to do.
To do the closing prayer.
Okay.
And I hope you got a gist of it. We were dealing primarily with a story of a lady who sought to revenge her husband because he was unfaithful, and she contracted HIV and took it to him, home to him.
Yeah, and I was hearing about forgiveness.
Yes.
Right? I hear about forgiveness. So let's pray. Father in heaven, we are grateful for this platform where we could meet as a group. You have inspired Sister June to have this platform, Friend of a Wounded Heart, where members could discuss, where we could exchange ideas to seek our betterment, where our family lives could be enriched, where our personal lives could be enriched. I am asking, Father, that you will continue to bless. Bless this platform and make it grow. May it meet its objective. Father, help us, Lord. Help us all, once we own, to truly be blessed and seek to apply the principles that we discuss. Bless every member. And Father, give us a forgiving heart, please. It's only you could do it, because you promise us the good work is started in us, you will complete it. Up to human beings, we cannot do anything on our own. But again, thank you for your word that says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And again, we thank you for your word that says, if God be for us, who could be against us? So bless us, Lord, and help us. Continue to bless again, bless this platform, and bless all of us as we leave now. In Jesus' name, amen. So I hope next week I will be on a little earlier and I will hear it from the start. All right, but may God continue to bless you and everybody on the platform. All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Keisha, could you share for us the topic for next week? And Eustace, we need you next week as well to share some stuff with us. So Keisha.
All right, so 9 p.m. next week, Wednesday, we will be discussing hurt and crime. All right, so I know so far we have not, our topics haven't failed. And so I anticipate that we're gonna have something that we can discuss, something that we can learn from, experiences that can, take us through, and even we can share with somebody as they may be going through something similar. We never know why we are placed in this room to hear these experiences of others. So that's us next week. And as we close, I just want to remind us that we don't have to go through our trials. We don't have to go through our hurts alone. We have a friend. We have a friend, according to our as our title of our program is, we have a friend in Jesus. We have a friend who is there to help us through our struggles and our trials. And I pray to God that we use our friend, and so that we wouldn't have to go through these trials on our own. So I am going to say good evening, everybody, and have a blessed night.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, sis.
Good night.
And blessings to
Have
you.
a good night.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. Blessed night.
Yes, Gail. Joy.
I didn't fall
Pleasant and
asleep
peaceful
tonight.
night to everyone.
Excellent.
Sleep well.
Yes. Joy, we will talk. Yes. Have a good night.
Yes.
We will talk.
All
yes.
right. Take care. God bless us.
All right. Yes.
Good night, Ms. Bob.
Good night, Eustace. Thanks a million. Yes.
All right. Good night, everyone on the platform. All right.
Good night, everyone.
Yes. Have a good night.
Good night, darling. I came in very, very late. I was praying with a sister who isn't well.
Galaxy 6. Who is Galaxy 6?
Marjorie.
Oh, okay, Marjorie. Okay. Okay. I'm glad you made it in.
Nice.
But I missed you last week.